Hello and welcome to Jim's Tabletop Wargaming. In today's episode we're going to be finishing off our Blood Angels Terminator. Last time we showed you how to do the assault cannon. Today we're going to be doing the body and assembling the model. Now on screen are the paints I've used in this video and also the brushes I've used. And to start with, we're going to be using some Mechanicus standard grey and a detail brush to paint the Crux Terminatus on his shoulder. So we just want to get a nice all over base coat of the grey there, so just all over that part of the shoulder. There we are, that's what that looks like once it's been completed. Now we're moving on to using Zandri dust to paint the loincloth on the front here. So again, we're just going to go over and just ensure that we've painted the entire thing. Now we're going to move on to painting the Power Fist black, as we've gone over with a little bit of red here. So what I'm going to do is just tidy that up and make sure that all the areas on there that we want to be black are black. And then I'm going to move on to painting some of the other areas and other details that we need to do black as well. So for instance, this cable here on the side, we're just going to touch that up with black just to make sure that that's ready for the striping later on. I'm also going to paint the vials and pouches on his belt here, so that's just again prepping for a future stage. I'm also going to touch up the little gemstones, make sure that they are also ready for any additional paint that we add onto them. And finally, we're just going to get these areas between the armour panels where there will be joints. So we're just going to make them black for the time being, just to make it look like it's some sort of black rubber. Right, now we're going to move on to painting the silver details. So for this we're just going to use some Leadbelcher. I'm going to paint the vents on the back here, and I'm also going to be painting the cable on the back of his Power Fist. As you can see, that's what it looks like once it's been completed. Next we're going to use Balthasar's gold and just pick out all of the gold details. So same as in the other videos, we're looking at things like the jewellery and skulls etc. on his armour and also on his belt here. Now I'm going to use Rakarth flesh and just apply this to the purity seal. And now I'm going to use Naggaroth Night just to paint the wax of the seal. I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade here just to shade down some of those recesses. So we're just going to add any areas where panel lines meet and any recess areas that we want to really capture the shade on. And then we're also going to apply it to the Crux Terminator, so we're going to give a nice coat all over the Crux. And I'm also going to apply it to the bottom parts of each of these armour panels around his waist, as I'm going to try and go for a darker shading effect on these. We're also going to apply it to the gold details as well. So just allow it to pull up in the place like the eye sockets. Now I'm going to go back and touch up these armour panels again just to make it really dark right at the bottom. There you go, you can see what that looks like as it's drying. Now we're going to go back and touch up the red panels with Mephiston Red. So anywhere we've gone too far over with Agrax, we just need to bring those back up to a deep red. We're also going to do the same on these panel lines just at the tops, so in the top half of each. Now we're going to go over with Evil Sunz Scarlet and pick out those areas again. This time we're just adding a slightly lighter shade to each of those. And we're going to do this just along the very top here on each of those panels. Just leaving a little bit of the Mephiston Red to show through underneath. As you can see now, that's starting to take shape. Now I'm going to go through and shade down the loincloth with Seraphim Sepia. So again, we just want to let this pool up in the recesses slightly. I'm also going to be applying Nuln oil to any of the silver metallic details, especially on the back grating here, as this will add a nice dark shade in between each of those and really make them each stand out. Now we're going to use Fire Dragon Bright and just go along and edge highlight each of the edges. So we're just looking for anywhere where light will be reflecting off of it, same as in the previous videos. And we're just going to do this on the same with the side panels as well. I'm going to add a little bit on the tops and bottoms just to make it look like light is reflecting off of those. And there we are, that's what that will look like once it's been completed. And now we're going to move on to using Dawnstone on the Crux Terminators. So in this case we're avoiding going into any of the recesses, just picking up the highest points. I'm also going to do the same with the Power Fist, so we want to just go around and pick out every edge that we can, including the ones on his little fingers here as well. Well, that's what that looks like once it's been done. I'm also going to do the same in these recessed joins between the armour lines, so I'm just going to try and pick out some of those individual little folds on there as well. And there you can see that gives a very nice effect. Now we're just going to add a nice warm highlight to the Crux Terminators. So in this case we're just going for some very topmost details, so just along the top of the skull here and on a little bit of the edges there. And that will add a nice sort of warm yellowy kind of glow to it. Now we're going to use Administratum Grey and go over some of those areas that we've gone over previously with grey. So in this case we're not going over the whole lot, we're just going to pick out a few little choice areas just to break up the grey and give it a little bit more variation of colour. Now we're going to apply Screaming Skull all over the loincloth, so in this case we want to avoid going into any of the recesses, and we're just going to try and pick out areas where the creases in the cloth and things like that, and around the edges as well. Next we're going to just give it a topmost highlight with Pallid Witch Flesh. Again, we are just picking out the very tops of each of those creases, we don't need to go crazy with it. Just needs to be along the edges just again to break up some of that colour a little bit more. Now we're going to use Runefang still just to pick out some of these silver details, so I'm just doing the bits around the cables here where they join, and especially along the back of his Power Fist here as well. Now we're going to use Gehenna's Gold and just go over all of the gold details that we've shaded down previously just to bring them back up to a nice shine. Now we're going to use Auric Armour Gold just to add a very slight additional highlight to each of those. And follow it up with some weathering using Runefang Steel just to make it look like it's been tarnished. And we're going to use Averland Sunset now to just apply the warning stripes. So again, we just want to make sure we maintain a fairly even and accurate gap between each of the strips and try and move in a diagonal motion. I'm going to use Genestealer Purple to create the gemstones, so we're just going to apply the standard J shape to each of those gemstones and also highlight the purity seal. Now I'm going to go back and highlight those further with a little bit of Emperor's Children. We're going to add Ceramite white dots to each of the gems as per usual, just to give the impression of light reflecting off of it. Now we're going to use Macragge blue to bring out the liquid in this vial. So we don't need to be too accurate with this, but you want to go up to about just over halfway and do along the bottom as well, just to give it the impression that there's a fluid moving around inside the vial. Now we're going to use Castellan green on the pouch, leaving a little gap around the edges where it meets up with the gold and with the loincloth, just to give it a little bit more of a shade. Now I'm going to further highlight that with rust grey on the vial. So for this we're going to add a little bit along the top, bottom, along the top where the line of the Macragge blue is, where the water level would be. And we're also going to add a small strip down the centre of the vial as well, just to make it look like light is reflecting off the vial. And we're going to further enhance that with some white. So again, we're just making it look like it's a glass vial and the light is reflecting off of it. So you want to add a line down the middle and just along the top and bottom of each of those. Now we're going to further highlight the pouch using a little bit of Loren Forest. So for this, again, we just want to leave a little bit of a gap around the outside just to let some of that Castellan green show through still. And now it's ready for assembly, so we're just going to apply some plastic glue and gently push all these pieces together. And there we are, that's what he looks like once he's been assembled. As you can see, we've still got some areas we need to touch up, so we need to do the base. So for this, what we're going to do is apply him to an old paint pot with some blue tack. And this will allow us to work on him hands-free without ruining any of the paint that we've already done. I'm also going to go ahead and finish off this purity seal, which I completely forgot to do. So we're just going to add some more Rakarth flesh just quickly over the top of that. Then we're going to further highlight that with some Pallid witch flesh just along the edges. And then finally we're just going to add some small lines of Abaddon black, thinned down as per usual, just to give a nice thin line to look like some writing on those parchments. Now we're going to go ahead and wash down the base with some Nuln oil. So we want to go all the way up to his feet there, but we don't want to go onto his feet. And once that's been completed and left to dry for a little while, we'll go on to the next stage. Applying Runefang steel just around the edges, just to really make them pop off a little bit more. And there we are, that's the model complete. It's been great fun painting it, and hopefully you've all enjoyed watching these videos as well. We're going to do a part 4 where I explain how to make the glaze for the eyes, and we'll see you then. Have a good one.